Hey everyone, thanks for hopping into the Sage Executive Podcast. I'm your host, Fernando Corona. And with us today, we got a pretty special guest. I'm excited to present him. He's got some pretty awesome experience. He's got a lot of knowledge to share. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and just kind of share who you are and what you do?
Hey, how are you? Good to see you, Fernando. So my name is Frédéric Guitton. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Marketing Officer at RedTeam Software. Carry a few hats. That's still the beautiful thing about being part of a startup. So, working with the sales and marketing team, obviously, but also with our partnerships. That's kind of what I do day to day. Been married for almost 24 years, 3 kids. If you can tell by my accent, I wasn't born here. I moved in the U.S. in 1996 from France. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, 24 years, we could shoot a podcast on how to keep a marriage. That's pretty solid.
Sure. But that's going to be a lot more than 10 minutes.
Yeah. All right. So in your experience, I mean, as of right now, you're probably, you're leading a startup company. You've got some solid experience leading teams. What would you say is really the best part that you look forward to in leading a team?
So I have a very defined view on what being a leader is. And so, one of the things I often share with my team is I don't get to lead you. That's not how it works. You get to choose to follow. You get to make me the leader. I don't get to make me the leader. The board of directors doesn't get to say Fred is the leader. It doesn't work that way. They get to make you the manager, but then being a leader is something completely different. So to me, the way I think about it is my favorite part of when you have a team that you've earned their trust is when they actually tell you when things are going really badly and they give you a chance at helping them figuring it out. And so I often refer myself to the hatchet man. And people say, well, the hatchet man is the guy that fires people. I was like, no, that's the guy who clears the path to help your staff be successful.
Yeah.
So you're the guy who goes first. And so that's kind of how I think about it, I guess.
So then in just going off of what you're saying right now, where they feel comfortable coming to you with their problem so that they can solve it, or can you kind of dig into that a little bit so I can understand it?
Yeah. It's so they know that there is an open door policy in terms of it's not about looking good. It's about getting it correct and not even getting it right. I'm always careful with that word. Like, to me, being right is not always that valuable. It's being correct. And so, being comfortable with, hey, listen, I'm thinking about this approach. What do you think? This is what this person said. This is what I'm hearing. This is what's working, not working. So really having that clarity about it. Now, you have to be cautious when you do that. It's not just open door policy for anything and everything. Otherwise, you're going to spend your days just talking. So you have to have a line of conduct that you've defined for the team as to this is what matters and this is the objective. And if that's not defined, then it's not going to work. People will be all over the place.
Yeah, and just going off that, I know just with my own team, it's kind of that building that trust factor in saying, one, it's okay to make mistakes. Like we're all going to make mistakes. I know I make a ton of them. But so the nice part, and it is really interesting, where at first you can feel they're hesitant to share that, but then, and I'm fairly new to this whole leadership role. But it's nice to be able to kind of calm them down in a sense and say, hey, no worries. It was a mistake. Right. It happens, but we're taking action to correct it. And then life goes on. So that's really nice. All right. So go ahead.
It's a tough balance to strike with some people. Some people try to become almost too friendly, too familiar, and they think all of a sudden they have the right to say anything and everything. And that doesn't mean that. So you also have to be clear as to what the expectations are. And that's one of the big, I think, killers of the opportunity to lead team is the manager first, right? Doesn't actually set proper expectations and doesn't give people the opportunity to ask questions about their management styles and that kind of stuff. If that's not aligned, they'll never be a leader. It's not going to work. You can't just
when you say create the line. Policies. Yeah. So what does it look like when somebody is stepping over a line, or how do you set the line? How do you know what to set? Because you made a comment about not being too friendly.
Right. So I've had the case before of employees that think that because you're open to talk about anything, they get to have an opinion that they believe is going to be followed. Like they go, you just say, I think you're wrong about doing this, and I'm not going to do that. So I have the discretion to do it differently. And now the deal is not that. The deal is, hey, I'm thinking about doing this differently. Let's talk about it. And I'm still the owner of the problem at the end of the day. And so I still get to say, yeah, I'm good with that twist, and let's try that. Or I'm not good with that. We're not going to try it. You don't get to make the call. And so that's the part that, if you make the call and I've made it clear that that's not how it works, then it doesn't work out. The rest is on the line. Pardon my French.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. And so you're now the chief strategy officer and the CMO. Right. In that type of role, you're essentially have to develop the outbound strategies, inbound strategies for new client acquisition. What's the difference between, by taking on those two hats, how do they complement each other? What are you doing to improve that client acquisition and marry those two together?
Well, first of all, I think that every manager, every C-level executive has to be a strategic thinker. So to me, the strategic part is gonna exist in everything you do. I think as the chief strategy officer, I try to align the strategies amongst the different departments, make sure that things work well together. As a chief marketing officer, it's more dialing in, with the clients, with prospects, people that don't know us yet, and really organizing that information in a way that we can understand it, so we can execute a plan and measure outcomes. I think that's a big part of where companies fumble, is they don't necessarily capture the right information. They capture a lot of information, but what do you actually need to know about your prospect, about what they're doing, what they want to do? If you don't have the right information, then you're not going to be able to adjust how you're targeting those people and be able to engage into a meaningful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now, with the information that you're bringing back, can you give an example at all as to how you're then using it to build your client base? Like what information you had to determine?
We have a series of products that we use, but what we started with is we literally have a workflow that we wrote that you actually have to put on a plotter, because it's actually a really big document, and it's all based on what if then. So what if this happens, and what do we do? And asking every single time after each task, so what if this is true or not true, what do you do? And then based on that, we selected platforms and products, etc., to make sure that we could actually know that information at the right time and take the right action. So I'll give you a simple example. We use Salesforce as our CRM, and we use Pardot for emailing strategies. So we have a scoring system in Pardot that tells us, they've opened the email, they click through the email. So there's a score assigned to each person that we're emailing. Mm-hmm. Based on that score, there's actions taken. Now, the part you have to also do is you have to downscore lack of activity. So you reduce the score by so many points every month of inactivity. And then we zero it out after a certain amount of time. It means they're no longer engaged at all. So we need to approach it a different way and go back and look at what's working, what's not working. And you have to actually cross-reference that to the company that they are and the role they are in. So you really have to intertwine that data in a way to be able to find where's the crossing point where all of that makes sense.
Now, how much data do you really need for all that to be statistically significant? So, I mean, at what point would you recommend companies really dial in and get that granular?
I think it depends on actually where you want to take your data, is more the way I think about it. So to me, the right answer is, if I think I'm going to be managing a few thousand, you probably shouldn't spend that much time thinking at that scale. Mm-hmm. If you think you're going to be managing tens of thousands, then you probably immediately should start thinking about it in those terms, because otherwise it's really difficult to go backwards and add that back in. So you want to actually build with that in mind initially. So to me, it's more not based on how much you have right now, it's how much you expect to have, and what you're planning to have is how you want to approach it would be more my strategy on that.
Yeah, got it. No, so a ton of good nuggets right there. This next question is your opportunity to really share that staple key advice that you would give to other executives out there. So, what would you kind of say to them?
Trust the data. I think that we all know the saying about opinions. I'm a big believer in that. I think we have to be really careful that opinions don't cloud judgment. Now, in order to trust the data, you have to be diligent about collecting the data and knowing what data is relevant, understanding your KPIs. But once you've established that, you actually have to really stick to the plan of follow the data. And usually you'll win. I think the overly emotional and people call things like intuition and this and that. I'm not a huge buyer in that personally. I tend to really look at, listen, there's probably a way to test this, and you test at a smaller scale and at a bigger scale and at a bigger scale, and eventually you can start execute plans. Doesn't take that long, but you have to be willing to be wrong a lot or incorrect a lot. In
After
order
looking at the
to get
data.
right
So you may have like a hypothesis, like, okay, I think this is what's going to happen. You run the small test, the medium test, the larger test, and you could be proven wrong.
Yeah, I've met dozens of leaders and business owners that says, I know that's going to work. I was like, all right. And they go, well, you don't agree? I go, I don't know. I mean, and 90% of the time it's just the truth. We just don't know. I said, just make sure you don't go bet the house on this. And maybe a couple of windows, but not the entire house yet.
We need some data. Yeah. I mean, even and that applies just at a small scale as well. It's like, well, we don't know. We got to look into what's the cost of a lead, what's the cost of acquisition. There's just a lot of things that can be applied to.
Right.
No, thanks, Frederic. All right. So this is also the next piece where you can acknowledge other individuals, hard workers, executives that you respect, that within your network can actually come on here and also give some really valuable information to the audience. Who would you recommend if there's anyone that comes to mind?
There's a bunch of people that I don't always know personally, or some that I've met and some that I've worked with. But here I'll take one that I've met casually, know someone, I've talked on the phone a few times, but I really, really respect what she's done. And her name is Tracy. She was the founder CEO of PlanGrid. And she is someone who, what I love about her approach to her leadership position and building this company, which she sold subsequently to Autodesk, is that she always has had this very, very clear vision about where she's going. And I thought it was always awesome to like listen to her speak and meeting with her. And that was very consistent. The person on stage, the person on video, and the person who you get to shake hands with and chat with on the phone, that was absolutely the same person. There was a clear, defined objective as to where she wanted to take her business. And I think that's important. I think it's important to be comfortable with who you are and what you want to accomplish and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. So that's something about her that I always really liked.
Yeah. And what was your relationship with her? How did you guys get connected?
Actually, our companies do business together. We have some integration points between our softwares. She's a leader in the construction software. So she does. I don't think she's working in that business anymore. She's done well for herself and deservedly so.
Yeah, got it. All right. No, thank you. Thanks, Frederic. So maybe I'll reach out to her, or we can get connected afterwards.
Sure.
So finally, this is an opportunity where you can share, what do you typically do with your team or by yourself, with your family, with your wife of 24 years? What do you do to celebrate after a win?
It's funny. I'm not a big celebration guy. Like, I'm not like, ooh, we have achieved a goal or whatever. I just kind of think about, if you can actually be, I think grateful for, just waking up, breathing. I think you're on the right track. The rest is kind of up to you. So, but I am French, so we if there's a moment, definitely I like a good nice glass of champagne and a great dinner. Be with good friends who are willing to have fun conversations. Those are the things that I always look for in terms of a good time, basically.
Yeah, nice. And is it pretty easy for you to like have some conversations not work related? You can leave work at work and come home and have totally different conversations.
Yeah, no, that part is easy, but I would say that I'm always never working. So it's just one of those things where
Yeah, I
I
got
can
you.
come in and out of those conversations. It's just for me, it's just part of I'll talk about sex, religion, politics, money, work, all in 20 minutes, and that's totally fine.
That's good. That's good. You should bring that and spread it more across the U.S. from France. We need it sometimes. All right,
Sometimes.
Frédéric. If
All right.
others want to get a hold of you, they want to learn more about your business, more about you. How can they reach out? How can they connect?
Yeah, I mean, just come and visit redteam.com. And you can, there's a chat there. You can say, hey, I want to connect with Fred, and you can find me, or you can email me at fguitton, so FGUITTON at redteam.com. I typically don't leave email unanswered. Right now, I'm freaking out because I've got like 13 unopened emails. It's one of my pet peeves.
Pet peeves. It's got to be clean.
Yeah, I always keep my email box clean. I cannot tolerate, like, I see people with like hundreds of emails.
Freaks me out.
Yeah, it stresses me out.
All right. No, thank you, Frédéric. I really appreciate your time. Cool. And for everybody else that's really tuning in to the Flying V Group podcast here, the Sage Executive Podcast, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.